Sid, Real Madrid nil, Osasuna nil, but that's not really the story. The story around this is the moaning that we've heard from the Real Madrid camp after the match about the conditions and about how this match should never have taken place in the first place. You know, like many, I watched this game, Sid, and the conditions didn't seem that bad.
No, I mean, obviously, me and you are of a generation, Dan, where we've seen hundreds of football games played on pitches far, far worse than this one. I think in terms of the quality of the surface, it was actually to Osasuna's enormous credit that they produced a pitch as good as this, given the conditions, given how much it had snowed during the night before, but in particular during the day of the game, given how cold it was as well. I thought in that sense they did a really, really good job. To be fair to Real Madrid, the complaints are kind of focused on the whole thing, not just the conditions themselves, on the fact that they were inside a plane waiting to see if they could take off for 3 hours the night before, the fact that they travelled earlier than they would have liked but later than the Liga had asked them to, the fact that I think that in some cases some of them were genuinely worried about the conditions they were travelling in, and of course the fact that they got to Pamplona to play the game, but getting out of Pamplona and getting home again was a different matter.
Instinctively, Sid, I just want to say boo-hoo.
Well, I mean, look, on one level, I can understand why you would say that, and I can understand why a lot of people's response to this has been to say, well, so what? You know, lots of people have had delayed flights before. Lots of people have been stuck before. They're stuck in a very nice hotel. That's not a major problem. But I do have some degree of sympathy for Real Madrid, and I think you have to look at this in two different ways, and that's the thing that I think part of this. Look, let's put the context into place. This is the biggest snowstorm central Spain has seen for 50 years. Real Madrid were inside a plane, not sure if they were taking off, for 3 hours on the runway at Barajas Airport. That plane took off at a point at which nothing else was leaving the airport. And there's all sorts of question marks about why was it that plane got out and all the others didn't, almost as if this was Air Force One. You know, this flight must get there. Real Madrid get there, they get there later than they want to. And as I say, I think some of them were worried about the conditions. And the condition of the game, I think, is very different to the condition of everything that goes around it. And I think that however well paid footballers are, I think however well looked after they are, that doesn't change the fact that they're still human beings, put in simple terms, and that there are elements of what happens that worry them. And of course, they are used to the very, very, very best conditions in terms of travel, in terms of how they're looked after and so on. So I can see why some of them reacted badly. That said, I wouldn't take it to, and this is why I say there's two stages to it. I wouldn't take that to the condition of the pitch itself, which I don't think was too bad, and I wouldn't take that to necessarily be a deciding factor in the way that the game played out. Because bear in mind, we've seen this kind of performance from Real Madrid on numerous occasions when the weather's been really quite significantly different.
You talk about that performance, Sid, and yes, we have seen those sort of 90 minutes from Real Madrid before, and unfortunately, we've seen these sort of performances from Eden Hazard pretty much exclusively since he's made that move from Chelsea. What happens? What's going to happen with him?
I don't know the answer to that. Because it feels like Zidane is trying very hard to get him back into the team, that he's very quick to put Hazard in when he thinks that he's fit and when he thinks that he can play him. I think he knows that Hazard is different to the players that he's got, and if he can get Hazard and Benzema to play alongside each other and understand each other, that's a really nice forward line. They're two players with very similar ideas of how to play the game, but I think complementary to each other. The problem, of course, with Hazard is you don't get continuity. You don't get him fully fit for very long. And then when he is fit, he doesn't always produce really good performances. In fact, I think you're right to say that he really hasn't at all. I must confess, and apologies for saying this, but I speak off the top of my head. I can't remember a really great performance from Hazard at Real Madrid. Not one. I mean, there must be some. There must be some that I can't think of. But I can't off the top of my head remember one. Now, I think he's been desperately unlucky with injuries. I think he's been unlucky with the timing of those injuries as well, with the kind of consistency of them. But it is difficult to see how Real Madrid handle this, except, of course, to say that I think Zidane will continue to do what he's done until now, which is to play Hazard whenever he can, to try and play him into form. And I think that, in truth, I think that's the only thing he can do, at least until the end of the season. Now, if this was to continue to the end of the season, and hopefully it won't, then I guess Real Madrid would have a decision to make.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.